Hello my creative friends, welcome to A Creative Flourishing. I'm Michelle Veller, an independent demonstrator with Stampin UP, and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to be making this adorable watercolor card using, you guessed it, markers. We're also going to be using a sandwich baggie, an aqua painter, some watercolor paper, and the fantastic, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful You stamp set by Stampin UP. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started and get creative. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to be using a sandwich baggie for our technique today and some Stampin' Write markers. If you're not familiar with our markers, they are dual tipped. So we've got a smaller side. Oops, sorry, didn't realize I was out of frame there. The smaller tip is used for coloring and writing, and coloring in small areas. And then there's the larger brush tip, which can be used to fill in and color large areas or for a fun technique like we're doing today. Oops, sorry. Want to make sure we get this over the paper. Not completely necessary, but I just kind of like to have idea of where I'm positioning the ink. So that was my mint macaroon, and now I'm going to go ahead and proceed with my peekaboo peach, and I'm just going to add that color right underneath. There is no wrong or right way to do it. We're just throwing some color down for this fun technique. And here we have the Watermelon Wonder, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing by adding some of the ink there on the bottom. Voila! So now I'm going to take my baggie and place it off to the side so that I can get water on this paper. I'm taking my aqua painter and pressing it so that the water goes to the tip. And I'm just kind of putting that water all into the center of the paper. Want to make sure that it's pretty well saturated. So as you can see here, that watercolor paper is pretty well saturated, and the reason that's important is because we want the ink to run when it touches the paper, so that we get that really pretty watercolor wash effect. So I'm just going to lay the baggie kind of where I want it, and then here we get real technical and you just smush it around. And so the more you smush it, the more that your colors blend and go together and flow around. And so I'm just taking that extra ink that has pooled there and just moving it around and giving it a fun look. And the cool thing about this watercolor technique is that each piece is going to be completely different, but they're just so pretty. I love it. Just love the way it turned out. Now I'm going to take my wipe and just clean up this baggie so I can put it to the side and use it again on my next card, or whatever else. Maybe a pack of lunch in it. I'm just putting that watercolor background off to the side so it can dry, and I'm moving on into the inside of the card. I have a piece of black cardstock. It's just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper cut in half, scored down the center at 4 1/4, and a piece of whisper white cardstock that I'm going to go ahead and stamp first with my Dancing Lady from the Beautiful You stamp set. I'm just using my StazOn black ink because that's what I'm going to be using for the front of my card, so that's what I had on hand. Sorry, forgot my scratch paper. Please bear with me. This is my very first video, so I'm just learning as I go. Isn't that cute? I just love adding those little details onto the inside of the cards. Just a little surprise element makes it a little more special. And here, just putting a little bit of adhesive so that I can glue this down to the center, inside of the card. Just lining it up here. Cute. I'm checking my paper and it's still a little bit wet, so I'm going to go ahead and put the heat tool to it so that we don't have to wait any longer. We can just get busy. And through the magic of television, voila! Isn't that gorgeous? I absolutely love the way that turned out. So cute, so cute. So to glue that to the front of my card, I'm going to adhere the watercolor background to a piece of black cardstock. I kind of like the tonal effect. Didn't need any additional color. I like the simplicity of it. And I'm using my liquid Tombow adhesive just because I wanted to be able to have that flexibility, because sometimes I don't really line things up that well because I can't see a straight line. And the reason I am matting it, if I didn't mention it before, is because it's watercolor paper and we really were saturating it, so sometimes it warps a little bit, so it helps to give it the stability of a piece of cardstock before we put it onto the front of our card. Also, I like to let it dry with a clear block over it to give it a little bit of weight so it doesn't warp. So now I'm just adding my dancing girl, who I inked up with the Stays On black ink, and I just want to make sure that I am pressing firmly and giving it a moment so that the ink absorbs into the paper and you get a nice clean image, because we're dealing with watercolor paper and it has those little dimples and such, so you want to give it a little bit more time so that it has a nice chance. Now this dance looks a little bit rustic, but I kind of like the way it turned out, so I'm not going to worry about it. I think it goes really well with the way that the card is. Now get ready for the super fun part. I always forget about this, but did you realize that you could watercolor using your markers on watercolor paper? You don't need any fancy tools. The trick is you don't want to press hard, you just want a really light stroke, and I am just going over the highlighted images or the lines on the image. You know, Stampin' Up's done all the work for me, so I can feel like a real artist. All I gotta do is go over their lines and then drag the color using my aqua painter. And a nice trick is to leave a little bit of white space. That's a key when you're watercoloring. And so I'm just blending it out. I'm not really pushing on my aqua painter. I just want to leave the little bit of water that's there and just pull it in. Isn't that great? I don't know, gets me all giddy. Love it. And now, of course, I am bringing in my Wink of Stella because it's going to give me a little bit more blending, but I love glitter. I just got to say it. I love glitter. The more glitter, the better. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some pop dots to the back of my card, and I just sped this up because nobody wants to watch anybody putting pop dots on the back of the card. It's like the little bit of dimension that it gives to the front of the card. And now I see the inside of my card and I like the way it looks, but of course I want to give it a little bit more color just because I can. Using that Watermelon Wonder, giving it a little pop. I love that bright color against the black and white. And then, yep, you guessed it, getting that Wink of Stella out again and adding some more glitter. I absolutely love my Wink of Stella, but probably not as much as my husband. I love any kind of glitter really, but he likes that this a little bit cleaner than regular glitter. It's really funny because every time he comes and talks to me in my little area, he ends up with a little glitter on him. Isn't that cute? Just love the way that turned out. But we're not done yet. We're going to give it a little extra touch so that we can take it over the edge just a little bit. I'm just going to grab my sequence and we're just going to add a couple little stars. Just gives it a nice shiny little element. I think when you're making cards, it's really those little extra touches that aren't necessarily needed. You could stop or you can take it as far as you want to. You would be perfectly fine not adding these little sequins to the card And it was just simply beautiful as is. Or you can add a few little blingy stars and take it up just another notch. Oh, so cute. I just absolutely love the way this card turned out, and I hope you do too. Thanks again for sticking with me for my very first video. I hope you enjoyed yourself today. Please subscribe to my channel and you'll be updated the next time I post a video. Even if you're just curious to see how I progress in my videos, feel free to subscribe. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.